that has become very politicized in terms of it, and I don't want to say a whole lot more.
That's Richard Sussman reporting. It's not clear when the leadership review will wrap up, but it's expected to be sometime later this year, potentially in the fall. And Senator Patrick Brazeau is recovering after collapsing on the Senate floor during the debate on the federal government's major projects bill. The 50-year-old Quebec senator rose to speak late this afternoon before falling over sideways onto the floor. A Senate spokesman says Brazeau appears to be recovering after he was examined by paramedics. Local news time is 6:18 after the Daily Standard.
We still have quite a bit of cloud cover across the region, but it's certainly brighter towards the southwest, and we still have a few sprinkles near the mountains. As we head through the evening hours, the drying trend will be on the way, and we're expecting dry conditions overnight. We'll drop down to about 13 degrees, and we're expecting showers throughout the day on Thursday. Still early in the afternoon with a daytime high of only 17 degrees. It looks like the unsettled weather could last into our Friday. We may see some breaks of blue sky at times, particularly in the morning, but then we also have a chance of showers. A little warmer though on Friday. Over the weekend, it looks like we'll be enjoying sunshine.
In downtown Vancouver, it's 19 degrees. Now the latest CKNW traffic.
Finally, some good news in Surrey. Cleared away the broken down vehicle eastbound on Highway 17 east of the Alex Fraser Bridge near the Surrey docks. All lanes are open and traffic is a little slow to recover through here. BC Liquor flash sale is on now. Save $9 on Saltram S1 Cabernet Sauvignon, now $10.99. Sale ends June 28th while quantities last. Enjoy responsibly, 18 plus. I'm Trish Jewison in the CKNW traffic eye in the sky.
Well, the news time is 6:04. I'm Joshua Azizi.
Welcome to the Ben Mulrooney Show on Wednesday, June 25th. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and thank you for finding us wherever you are. You may be listening as a podcast or as a part of a streaming app or on the radio, or you may find us on YouTube. In all cases, we say thank you and welcome, and let's build the Ben Mulrooney Show together. Canada's commitment to NATO on paper has been unfailing. We have been founding signatories back in, I believe, 1949. However, in practice, we have been derelict in our duty by not adhering to one of the core tenets of that organization, which is that every member nation needs to spend a minimum of 2% of their GDP on military spending and upkeep, so that we can be prepared to defend ourselves and each other. Because fundamental to NATO is an attack on one member is an attack on all. You attack one member, everybody else joins in the fight. That's why we were founded. That is the safety in numbers. And it has been essential to keeping the post-World War II peace. And so our Prime Minister, following what many believe, and I believe, was a successful hosting of the G7 summit in Kamloops, Alberta, went to Brussels for the Canada-EU summit, and after that ended up at the NATO summit. And here is the NATO Secretary General talking about sort of a reevaluation, a re-envisioning of the importance of NATO, thanks to one person in particular.
There will also be a massive achievement in making NATO fairer. For decades, the United States fought that Europe would truly step up. Now, European allies of Canada will equalize their defense spending with the United States. So let's salute President Trump's long-standing leadership, calling for NATO to increase defense spending. Today, I am pleased to announce that NATO has already added an additional $1 billion to defense spending over the past decade. Mr. President, dear Donald, that is thanks to you pushing us. And tomorrow we will build on that foundation and add trillions more in defense spending, because we need to do this.
Listen, if you are like me and you believe that Canada has been derelict in its duty as it relates to our commitment to our brave men and women in uniform for decades, then you have to give credit to Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, whether you respect him or not, whether you think he's a felon and shouldn't be allowed to travel internationally or not. He has been like a dog with a bone, sometimes negotiating, sometimes speaking behind closed doors, oftentimes deriding, chiding, and insulting his NATO partners in public in an effort to get them to do what they have signed on to do. And we had a prime minister for 10 years who refused to acknowledge the importance of our military and treated it as in that way. He was consistent, but he did so. And now we have a Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who seems to want to reassert Canada's relevance on the world stage and restore Canada's military to a place where it can be revered, respected, and in certain circumstances, feared. You got to take one with the other. And so credit must be given to Donald Trump on this particular file. That being said, so we're going to get back to what Mark Carney's doing on that file in a moment. But here's where I scratch my head. Let's listen to an interaction that our Prime Minister had after the EU-Canada summit and in anticipation of this very important NATO summit. Here's what he said to CNN's Christian Amanpour about Canada and the United States and where we find ourselves today.
I'm coming here in the last 12 hours ago. I was in Brussels agreeing at the Canada-EU summit, agreeing a very comprehensive partnership and a process to have an ever closer economic defense and security partnership between Canada and the EU. That is an example of two jurisdictions in the case of the EU that believe in multilateralism, believe in the rule of law, believe in fair and open trade, believe in defense cooperation. So that's an example of leadership, if you will, that's positive. It's not it's a reaction, if you will, to what's happening in the United States. But it's not a reaction against the United States. It's for something, not against.
And by the way, I really appreciate the nuance that he brought to that near the end, that our reactions to a wildly different worldview that Donald Trump has from previous administrations is a move in Canada towards something, not against something. And I appreciate that, and I thank him for verbalizing something that others may not be able to do. However, what is NATO if not a commitment to multilateralism? What is NATO if not a commitment to work together on the military front? That is what they are and what it has been since 1949. And Donald Trump, yes, he has mused in the past about abandoning NATO, but I believe it was all in service of getting through this moment. And yes, he is not a dyed-in-the-wool multilateralist. He believes in that one-on-one negotiation. He believes in bilateral communication. He's not a big fan of organizations like the UN and its tentacles that spread far and wide. I get that, but NATO is central to security in the Western Hemisphere, and it is nothing if not a multilateral security arrangement. And he is responsible for strengthening it, for beefing it up, and for ensuring its viability and essential nature for generations to come. So I'm having a difficult time understanding the thrust of that comment by our Prime Minister. Listen, it's not multilateralism in every occasion for Donald Trump. It just isn't. But it is in this case. And it is further reinforced by Canada's additional commitment. I mean, it's ambitious. Justin Trudeau said we couldn't hit our 2% GDP commitment in military spending until like 2035. Mark Carney on the campaign trail said 2030. And then a few weeks ago said we were going to do it this year. That's ambitious on its own. Now he says that we are going to hit 5%, not 2, not 2.5, not 3, 5% annually over the course of the next few years. And that will total $150 billion a year in military spending. How we get there, I have no idea. Am I happy that this is a goal? Not sure it's a stretch goal. Am I happy that this is a goal of our government? Yeah, goddamn right I am. This country has a history stained in blood. We have died on the beaches of Europe for democracy in World War I, in World War II, and there are forces in this country that want to start our military history with the creation of the blue helmet of the UN. That is a lie, it is a fiction, and it is a disservice and a dishonor to those men and women who died for this country. After the Second World War, Canada had the third largest navy in the world. That's how significant our contribution was to world security. And to have an ambition, not to bring it back to that, but to understand that the world is complex and it needs honest brokers and good, strong actors like Canada to be able to step up, not just with rhetoric, but with military might when needed. I am very happy that this government is doing that. However, where are we going to get the $150 billion from? $150 billion. That's not change that you find in a sofa. 150, and I don't like these comparisons when others make them, so I'm only going to make them quickly. I mean, $150 billion, you can give $3,800 as a one-time gift to every single Canadian walking around today. So, if we're going to find that, I think we're finding it in the ground underneath the feet of Alberta. That's what I think, and we will discuss that, obviously, as this government becomes longer in the tooth. All right, don't go anywhere. Much more to come on the Ben Mulroney Show.
Summer's on, but you're cool, because Ashton Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning can help you take advantage of a $5,000 dual-fuel heating system rebate from Fortis BC on the installation of a new, eligible electric heat pump and high-efficiency gas furnace. With 2 years of free maintenance with every installation, financing, and this very cool Fortis BC rebate, contact Ashton Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Conditions apply. Visit callashton.com for a free, no-obligation estimate.
for their help with my consumer proposal. My life has improved significantly since my proposal was accepted. accepted. The overwhelming stress that I lived under is now gone. This company cares and made the entire process manageable for me. Thank you, Sands & Associates." End quote. Sands & Associates is open 7 days a week and open late. Click sands-trustee.com.
Green or brown, with seasonal care and maintenance, your lawn only needs 1 hour of watering or rain a week to stay healthy. Find lawn care and water-saving tips at itstalldrinkingwater.ca. A message from Metro Vancouver.
The importance of local news.
What are we going to do in a wildfire? What are we going to do when we have a power outage?
Radio NL, the company owner, slashed the news department.
You can't really replace that with social media. We need somebody to fact check the world.
You diminish that voice, and you're going to feel it in the community.
NL has been that voice for so long.
That's where people go, right? You need to be able to have that local source.
Mornings with Jimmy. Weekdays at 5:30 on 730 CKNW.
Welcome back to the Ben Mulrooney Show, and with this new front in the Middle East, the war in the Middle East with Israel / the U.S. and Iran, that presents opportunity for possibility of regime change in that terrible, in that great nation with a terrible regime. But it also presents risks both for the region and abroad. And Foreign Minister Anita Anand recently said that she's deeply concerned about foreign interference by Iran's regime and the possibility that Tehran could be activating terrorist sleeper cells on Canadian soil following the U.S. strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. That should be terrifying for every Canadian. Accessory to that, the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy has put forth a study with some key findings in it, most notably that there have been failures by Canadian governments and Canadian authorities to address radical Islam as a threat, and it's become a national security issue, and they urge a full government investigation, tighter regulation on federal donations, and increased scrutiny on nonprofit and academic institutions linked to extremist ideology. To break down the salient points in this study, we're joined by Dr. Charles Asher Small. Doctor, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. It's a great honor to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So Doctor, it's been, people like myself who've been watching the federal government's actions on files like this over, certainly under the Trudeau government, thought that this was a serious issue that we did not take seriously.
No, I agree. I grew up in Montreal, and I was recently there for the Passover holidays, and listening to the conversation around the table with 4 generations of Canadian Jewish people, all born in Montreal. And I have to say, I do not recognize the city, I do not recognize the country that I grew up in. The Jewish community is living in fear in Canada, which was a great democracy, a great multicultural democracy that we all helped to build, and it's changing rapidly. And as Professor Elie Wiesel taught us, the Nobel Prize winner, anti-Semitism is not a parochial problem for the Jewish community. We know from history that anti-Semitism may begin with the Jewish people, but it never ends with the Jewish people. And this is a direct assault on the Canadian democratic multicultural principles that I urge all Canadians to take very seriously.
And let's be clear off the top. I mean, for decades, Canada invited to our shores scores of hard-working, good faith Muslim immigrants who helped build this country into what it became. What we're talking about today is not that. We are talking about, there's something, I was banging my head against the wall for years as the Canadian government refused to list the IRGC as a terrorist organization. It was only under pressure by the Conservatives in opposition that Trudeau's government actually did what they were supposed to do. And so that to me is sort of like the canary in the coal mine. Like, look at that. That's the example from which everything else makes sense. Now, this study says, and I'm going to talk about a couple of bullet points, and then maybe you can add the context. There's the claim that Canadian taxpayer dollars are funding extremism. What do you mean?
So what we mean is that the Muslim Brotherhood, and for your listeners to know, and I think you make a very important point, Canadian Muslims have contributed to Canada, Canadian society in a very profound way, and I think we need to respect and understand that. What's happening is that the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood is a reactionary social movement. It's a movement that takes European genocidal anti-Semitism combined with Nazism with a perversion of Islam. It's a very narrow, hate-filled social movement. And sadly, it's increasingly in Canada and in other Western...
in our country. But what are the impacts of that?
So I think the impact is the radicalization of the Muslim community. So, for example, Yosef Kawadawi, who's the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, who preached his entire life as a true believer, the Muslim is obligated to finish the work of Hitler. They want to destroy Western democracies. He himself has funded research centers at universities, mosques in Ontario and in Quebec. They work with members of parliament. This is also in our report. And they're funding non-profit organizations and charitable organizations in Canada. So this, in a sense, the taxpayer is helping to foot the bill of these contributions.
And you also mentioned that it's sort of like a shell game or a game of whack-a-mole, where when we identify one group as a terrorist organization or a dangerous organization, they rebrand as something else, as charitable organizations.
Exactly. Once you identify one group, the company or the charity is closed, and suddenly the same names appear on a new company and a new charitable organization. So exactly. And they're very astute at that. They're very sophisticated.
So studies like this typically come with a call to action. What would you want the government in Ottawa to do with the information you collected?
So I think it's a great question. I think we need greater transparency in Canada so that there's less risk of money laundering and investing billions of dollars into Canada to undermine our democratic principles. That's number one. Number two, we're arguing that the Muslim Brotherhood needs to be designated as a terror organization. We were happy that the Canadian government recently labeled Samidoun as a terror organization. They were representing the PFLP and other Muslim Brotherhood affiliated organizations. For years, people in Canada were calling on the government to designate them as a terror organization. It took the U.S. Treasury it was required for them to intervene and to call on the Canadian government to act. And once the U.S. Treasury put some pressure on Canada, within 48 hours, they were suddenly banned. So we're arguing that Canada needs to be responsible and protect its democratic institutions and protect the Muslim Canadian community from being branded as extremists, which the Muslim Brotherhood and these organizations unfortunately are doing.
Do you think that with a lot of the changes that Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to bring to bear in very short order in terms of border security, intelligence gathering, beefing up our ability to crack down on organized crime, do you think those legislative changes will help in the goals that you want them to adopt?
We hope so. We hope with the new government that there'll be a bit of a change of political orientation on these matters. I think that the Canadian government, the Carney government, and some people around them understand that this is really a threat to Canadian stability. I think the American government is also concerned about what's taking place in Canada, that Canada is becoming a place of entryism into the United States, that money and nefarious actors and even terrorists are crossing the United States. And I think in this political environment, I know that Canadians want to have good relations with the United States.
Yeah, Doc, we're going to have to end it there, but thank you very much. I wish you the very best. And when we come back, this week in politics, it's been a busy week already. It's only Tuesday. No, Wednesday. Wednesday.
The Magnuson family, Metro Ford. Family owned and operated since 1965. For decades, the Magnusons have built lasting relationships with customers all across British Columbia. servicing and selling Fords with care, integrity, and a commitment to excellence. For a dealership that redefines the car buying experience, look no further than Metro Ford, 3 blocks east of Coquitlam Center in beautiful Port Coquitlam, or online at metromotors.com. Metro Ford, where the Lower Mainland buys their Fords.
1877 Cars for Kids. K-A-R-S Cars for Kids. 1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your cars today.
Donate online at carsforkids.ca. That's cars with a K. Pickup is quick and easy. You'll benefit a child and get a maximum tax credit.
1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your cars today.
Donate today, and your car can be gone tomorrow.
BC Liquor's flash sale is on now. Save $9 on Saltram S1 Cabernet Sauvignon, now $10.99. Sale ends June 28th. Visit your nearest BC Liquor. Products vary by store, only while quantities last. Enjoy responsibly.
If you're thinking about the legacy you want to leave behind, here's Sherry McMillan from McMillan Estate Planning.
Legacy isn't just about wealth. It's about values, memories, and intention. At Macmillan Estate Planning, we help high net worth families design thoughtful plans that preserve not only assets, but purpose. Let's make your legacy as meaningful as your life. RSVP for Macmillan Estate Planning's complimentary virtual seminar on Thursday, July 3rd at macmillanestate.com.
Hey, Joe. What do you know? Chad, is that you? You're so chill. Like the patio gurus. They got me some shade. Oh, I have their retractable awning. Protection from sun and rain all in one. Motorized, screen-free. All the lake view? None of the above. Gonna check out their outdoor heaters this weekend. Mind if I join you? There's an outdoor couch there calling my name.
A division of Withers Screen Solutions. Find them at getpatiogurus.com. Shade and comfort just a click away.
Listen to Mornings with Cindy tomorrow. Presented by Alpine Credit, approving home equity loans since 1969. If you own your home and need a loan, they can help. Alpine Credit. Homeowners get approved.
You don't have to wait. Boxing Day is back at the Brick for 4 days. Shop incredible deals, like mattresses starting at just $99. Save big on genuine leather sofas and sectionals. Queen beds start at only $199. And save the tax when you buy 2 or more major kitchen appliances. Plus get free local delivery on outdoor furniture purchases of $499 or more. Some exclusions apply, so you store for details. Boxing Day is back this weekend at the Brick, saving you more.
In Sweden, minimalism doesn't mean boring. It means removing the unnecessary and perfecting what remains. Polestar 3, the electric SUV with sports car performance. No valve, no whistle. Just design and performance perfected. Until June 30th, enjoy a $25,000 cash offer. A bold step toward electric without compromise. Yes, $25,000 on a Polestar 3. Visit Polestar Vancouver or polestar.com. Conditions apply.
Now, the rundown. Celebrate Canada Day at Canada Place. Canada Together, presented by the Port of Vancouver and the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, is a family-friendly, free all-day event. Donate to the Covenant House Vancouver and have your donation matched. Art on the Beach is back with 4 new productions at Vanier Park in Vancouver. The Tea Party play the Abbotsford Centre, November 26th, with the Headpins and Finger 11. Tickets through Live Nation.
This is the Ben Mulrooney Show.
Welcome back to the Ben Mulrooney Show. And look, politics operates at a breakneck speed, and so we got to check in with some very smart people quite often. And today it is time for This Week in Politics with our panel. We got Tom Parkin, good friend of the show, principal at Impact Strategies. Tom, you live in the life of Riley there by a lake somewhere. It looks like paradise.
Yeah, it's great.
Regan Watts, founder of Stratton. Yeah, we got Regan Watts joining us. He's the founder of Stratton Park, as well as a former senior aide to Jim Flaherty. Nice to see you, my friend.
Morning, Ben.
And for the first time, I've spoken to him many times before, but never on this panel, Yona Budd, the co-founder and clinical director of the Farm Rehab. Welcome to the show, Yona.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so Yona, we're going to start with you. You're the new guy on the panel, and I want to talk about Mark Carney. It's still early days, but we're beginning to get a sense of who he is and the kind of prime minister he wants to be. And there are a couple of stories that came out that I think offer some insight into who he is and how he wants to be different from his predecessor. He promised he would be, and these articles suggest that he is. On one hand, he's letting people know that bureaucrats better get on board with his breakneck speed of doing things, or they will be replaced. And an insider said something I thought was quite salient because I can appreciate it. He said that the bureaucrats have been in power for so long that they have muscle memory and they rely on process rather than outcome. And that's what their priority is. He wants about. On the other side, there's talk that he's really trying to govern in a way that attracts, the red Tories, the centrists from all parties to his vision of the country he wants to build. And I guess the question I have for you is, do you think he's genuinely purging all of those aspects of the Trudeau liberals from his version of the party that was so much violent opposition to him?
Great question. Thanks for having me. I'm not quite sure I'm here because you said it's full of, smart people. But anyway, I'll do the best I can. I think he's done a really good job taking advantage of the new noise that came into play once he came into office, with what's going on with Trump, with what's going on in the Middle East. And I think he's managed to leverage those distractions, if you will, to help people move off of the old kind of Trudeau mindset into, his vision of moving forward with a lot of, he seems to be picking up momentum and confidence and support along the way. Because frankly, I think he's doing a hell of a job in terms of his relationship with the U.S. And I think people see him versus Trudeau. I mean, physically see him as a much stronger, more dominant, more together guy. And I believe that, the noise and the confusion that we were getting from Trudeau towards the end of all of it, people aren't talking about it so much anymore. They're all talking about this new version of the Liberals who kind of sort of feel like conservatives as well. So I would say he's done a pretty decent job from the outside, but, politics, that's the way it works, right? You have to capture the moment.
Regan Watts, you've gone on record saying that Mark Carney has you purring like a kitten, and I got to say, look, if a Liberal is going to inject $150 billion into military spending, that's kind of my kind of Liberal. However, he does have a caucus that is made up in large part of people who got us into the mess we were in for 20 years. So where do we stand in the sort of on the timeline of, as we said, purging his party of the people that got us into the mess we were in?
So I confirm that Mr. Carney continues to have the purring because I think as Prime Minister, his performance is exceptional. The country was yearning
a really well, it seems to me that Mark Carney was somebody people had hoped to more than they had either expectations or knowledge of.
Yeah, I think
it was an idea that he wasn't Pierre Poilievre, and that was easy. He just didn't have to punch apples and cheese obnoxious. The standard was low, and he had to look serious, and he had to talk from Canada, and he had to position against Trump, and filled in the blanks. A lot of leftist center voters filled in the blanks wrongly. And I think
what did the people on the left assume was going to happen when they filled in the blanks?
I think that people thought the Trump thing was they were going to stop Pierre Poilievre. That was, I think, key for most progressive voters, and the rest was kind of well down the road. As for what Mr. Carney believed or what they thought they were voting for, it's funny because in a way the conservatives sold him. He was an environmentalist. He was liberal. He was a continuation of Justin Trudeau, and so he was comfortable for voters on the left. But that's not the way it turned out. He's obviously, he killed carbon tax, making people hurt, and he had an income tax cut for the benefit of the wealthy and legally passed Bill C-5, which is I think unprecedented. The idea that you have a government that passes regulation that voids bills, that voids regulation, that voids legislation. I don't even know how that can be how that can happen for any project that he chooses, that he wishes. I mean, that's like king stuff.
Regan, you want to jump in there? You got about 40 seconds.
Hell hath no fury like Tom Parkin and progressive voters because I wish I could have sympathy for Tom and his party members. The fact is the country is Bill C-5 does that. There's lots of things you can quibble about it, but what you cannot doubt in question is the intent, which is to get projects built in for too long because it's too deferential in government and policymakers towards third-party interest groups who are funded from various different ways, but with the sole objective of stopping things from happening. I acknowledge fully that there's certain issues that need to be addressed, and I expect Mr. Carney and his government to deal with those. But
well, we're going to
Regan tax cuts are provided to Canadians who are overtaxed.
Regan, we're going to leave it there. When we come back from the break, I want Yona's first take on how younger Canadians are more likely to trust the Ayatollah. Good God, don't go anywhere.
Hi, it's Peter Sashecki, president of Everything Financial Group. You'd have to be living under a rock the last few months not to witness and feel the economic and political uncertainty and see the roller coaster it's caused to investments and stock markets worldwide. So how do you have peace of mind in these unpredictable times? Number one, have a proper financial plan, like our Omni formula. Our plan uses an active portfolio manager and has a fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. They're empowered to, like the word says, actively manage your investments, making the adjustments in and out of sectors, changing the weightings of your bonds, cash, and equities, all to help you navigate your portfolio through these market fluctuations. Why would you not want that? Rather than your life savings being locked into a one-size-fits-all mutual fund riding out the wild market swings. Book a free initial meeting, and in just an hour, we can set you up on the road to financial freedom and the peace of mind that you deserve. Click everythingfinancial.com.
My kids are such bright students, but they're not challenged enough in school.
They should experience the Spirit of Math program.
Canada's premier after-school math program that takes high-performing students from the top of the class to the top of the world by developing problem-solving and critical reasoning skills to become our future leaders. Registration is open for online and in-person classes. The spots are limited. Go to spiritofmath.com to register today. Spirit of Math, advancing human intelligence since 1994.
Let's talk paint, Canada. Get two for the price of one at the Great Canadian Super Paint Sale. On now.